year and a half ago, and it clearly shows Cern alluding to the Mandela Effect. These guys were basically flaunting, or they were playing along, basically telling us that they were behind the Mandela Effect. Now, why am I showing you H.P. Lovecraft? Why am I talking about the Mandela Effect? Okay, here we go. Here's Geordie Rose in his own words explaining that what they're pulling through from other dimensions, it wouldn't be accurate to call them demons because demons doesn't quite sum it up. In this video right here, you're going to hear Geordie Rose in his own words explain that they have opened a literal tsunami and that mankind is not going to be ready for this. Here's Geordie in July talking about the Mandela Effect, the quantum key to the pit, and the rumors that Cern and D-Wave are behind the Mandela Effect. In his own words.
Over the years there, I got sent pajamas, a whole bunch of stuff. There's lots of interesting things that happen when you build something like a quantum computer. But just as an aside, because I thought it was funny, one of the interesting things that's happened from the D-Wave story is there's this gigantic conspiracy that's arisen on the internet that goes like this. So D-Wave build quantum computers. The way that they work, if you know how this works, is one of the interpretations is that you tap into these parallel universes and they do computations. Sounds really weird. But
notice that he tries to ridicule his own words. It sounds really weird. They tap into other dimensions, but he's clearly showing Anthony Patch, and he just basically glosses over the whole thing. But this is going to get much, much more serious. Now, and I also am playing this at a faster speed to avoid a copyright strike. So there's that.
What's happened is this idea has been hijacked to describe something called the Mandela Effect, which is this thing where the past changes. So think about something you know to be true from the past. And then imagine you went out on the internet and you can't find it at all. It's not there. It doesn't match with your experience. So these people think that D-Wave is responsible, and Cern. And of course, the quantum key to the abyss factors into it somehow. I'm not exactly sure how. Okay, so that's just D-Wave. I did that for about 15 years.
Now, before I made this video, I called and I texted Anthony Patch to get him to comment on this, and he hasn't gotten back to me, and he probably won't. So there's that, because, why not? At any rate, this gets much worse. In this video, he's saying that he's basically done with D-Wave, and he's working with Kindred, and they're going to make AI robots that can do every single solitary thing a human can do, but better. Now, notice the symbolism on his shirt, because these guys are loaded with it, because everything that they're doing is on the occult level, which is why they surround themselves with symbolism at all time. They have to. It's part of the deal. You see what I'm saying? It's all coincidental, but these guys are constantly and always wearing the symbolism. But I digress.
What you've heard about AI is not what we mean by AI. What we mean by AI is a software system that can do literally anything that a human can do. Literally anything. And obviously, computers are better at things than people in lots of different ways. So now imagine, not only can they do everything that a human can do, but they can do everything that the best human at any task could do better than them. So imagine there was the mental Olympics of the 100-meter dash, and Usain Bolt is the fastest person. Now imagine that's some kind of a mental thing, like writing a novel or writing whatever. Imagine now that the thing is so much faster than Usain Bolt, like, for example, it's a spaceship. Yeah. It's still doing the same thing, but it's doing it so much better because we're limited, because we're people. So what Kindred is trying to do is solve this problem. How do you build machines that are better than people at everything? Now, there's a mental block that we have here when we think about this. Because when you think about that, one of your questions might be, for example, what are the applications of this? So imagine this. Imagine, for $10, let's say, I could build a machine, like a little robot, that had fingers and eyes and all that. And it could do your job better than you, no matter what it is. And I could sell that to your employer for, say, $15 and make a profit, instead of having to pay you $100,000 a year.
So right off the bat, this goes back to the video that TruthStream Media put out a year and a half or so ago called Obsolete, where they are literally going to replace humanity in no one will have any jobs whatsoever if these guys get their wish, because they're bringing through demonic entities. Now, does that sound like a conspiracy theory? Of course it does. But do you know where that comes from? The horse's mouth. Continue listening, and he is going to straight up say it. And you should be terrified, and you should be prompted to prepare yourself spiritually, because this is a spiritual battle. No two ways about it. I don't care what you think. There's a reason that this was put in the Bible. There's just no two ways about it. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Now stay tuned, because Jordy is going to straight say this. And he also says the same thing that I say all the time. This is going on in the background, whether you know it or not. He also alludes to the fact that everyone's worried about the health care plan and sports and television and the news and politics, while this continues to march on in the background. I've listened to this exact interview with Jordy, or this presentation with Jordy. I've listened to it at least 15 times since yesterday.
Now imagine that was true for every single job. So that's what we're talking about here, is a complete and utter transformative change that of the likes of which has never been seen before in the history of humanity, making the Industrial Revolution look like a little tiny blip on the path that humans have taken from when we emerged from the ooze a few billion years ago. We are right on the verge of that transition now. So this guy, Rich Sutton, is one of the most famous people in the academic world of AI.
Now listen. This guy is the guy behind the D-Wave quantum computer, the only quantum computer in the world that is accessing other dimensions, according to what they are telling us. He is telling us that we are on the verge right now. So pay attention, because what he is going to say should shape your entire future.
And like many, when asked, when will this happen, he says things like this. 25% chance within 13 years of this thing that I'm talking about. You know, when you think about what you read on the news, you know, CNN, BuzzFeed, whatever, they're all kind of the same nowadays. Think about how unimportant that thing is that you're reading if this is true. Yeah? So what does this have to do with aliens? So Sam Harris, who I quite admire, is a very interesting guy, was reciting this parable at a TED Talk that he was giving, and it goes something like this. So, say I'm the President of the United States. So I received this message from the heavens. So my microwave dish, my SETI dish, finally captures something. And what it says is, in 50 years, or 13 years, we're coming to your planet. You got to be ready. Now just imagine what would happen if that happened. A super intelligent alien race beamed down a message to all of us Earthlings saying, we're coming July 13th, 2030, and boy, you better be ready, because the mothership is landing right on the front lawn of the White House, or wherever you wanted to land, on that day. The amount of resources that would be marshaled to try to figure out what to do would encompass the whole world. AI is just like that. So when this thing that I'm talking about happens, it's going to be exactly the thing that you're thinking about those super intelligent AIs. So the one thing I can tell you is they're not going to be like us. So alien means, you know, different. These things that we're building are not going to be people. They might be really smart, they might be really good at all sorts of different things, but they're not going to be like us. They're going to be aliens. And they're going to be, I'm sorry to say, way smarter than every single person in this room.
Now pay attention, because he's literally disclosing right this moment
that we can't even comprehend. So this, of course, triggers a lot of alarm. One of the guys who talks about this is Elon, who says things like this, like, when you do this, beware. Because you think, just like the guy in the stories, that when you do this, you're going to put that little guy in a pentagram, and you're going to have your holy water out, and you're going to wave it at the thing, and by God, it's going to do exactly what you say and not one thing more, but it never works out that way. So this is an attitude that some are having, this emerging alarmism about the way this is going to go. But these words, demons, doesn't capture the essence of what's happening here. I don't know if any of you are turn-of-the-century weird fiction fans, but there's this guy named H.P. Lovecraft, who's a very famous American weird fiction author. And he espoused a view which is called Cosmicism. And the essence of Cosmicism is cosmic indifference. So what he was saying is basically, yes, there are these massively intelligent entities out there, but they're not good, they're not evil. They just don't give a shit about you even in the slightest. The same way that you don't care about an ant is the same way they're not going to care about you. And these things that we're summoning into the world now are not demons, they're not evil. The same way that you don't care about an ant is the same way they're not going to care about you. And these things that we're summoning into the world now are not demons, they're not evil, but they're more like the Lovecraftian great old ones. There are entities that are not necessarily going to be aligned with what we want.
Now, you can spin that any which way you like. He has straight up told you these entities that we're summoning into this world. He's putting a call to action out. He's sitting in front of a classroom full of code writing students and asking them to come on board right now. He's already said that they've opened the floodgates. He's already described what they were. He's already saying that they will appear to be quote unquote alien. If you want to stay in your holiday season, your safe space, whatever you want, this is what we've been telling you for years, and this is why we've been telling you. Because while everyone else is watching BuzzFeed and CNN and NFL and everything else, some of us have been studying this ad nauseum. This is it.
Aligned with what we want. So this transition is really, really massively important for our entire species to navigate. And going back to that thing that Sam Harris was saying, nobody is paying attention. This thing is happening in the background while people bicker about politics and what's going to be in the healthcare plan in the U.S. And underneath it all is this rising tsunami that, if we're not careful, is going to wipe us all out.
How much clearer do you need it to be said? This is the guy that started D-Wave. This is the man that's given us a high-speed internet connection to other dimensional beings. He is saying it. Here it is. It couldn't be any clearer. I don't know what else to tell you.
So, on that pleasant note, we're hiring people to try to make something like this happen. And of course, this is a very difficult project, of course. And I'm kind of a little bit tongue-in-cheek about all this, like, how bad things are, because it's not really like that. Technology is a double-edged sword. Even something like this, it's agnostic. It depends who wields it. If you want to have a say in how all this goes down, you can't sit on the sidelines. You want to have a say.
Do you understand what I'm saying? They are absolutely addressing us straight up. It doesn't get any clearer than that. And he has completely said this. Full armor of God. This is no joke. I haven't seen this information anywhere else whatsoever at all. Richie from Boston, share this. I'm out.